I'd like to welcome you to the Black Wall Street Awards. Tasemere Gathers, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. What do you do?
I work with solopreneurs, micro entrepreneurs to build strong businesses that are scalable.
Okay. And you also do some work with the Harlem Business Alliance and the Black Business Economic Commission?
Yes, I do.
Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because we have been fighting this fight ever since we were enslaved here in these states, and so we have to figure out how do we overcome institutional racism, how we break down cycles, and how do we teach the generations after us how to become stronger and better, and they don't have to always start from zero.
One of the things you and I talked about is what my generation failed to pass on to yours.
Yes.
I am sorry we failed you, but if you allow us, we will try to correct it. Now, one of the things you brought up was, well, let's just start with it, credit. What do we have to do a better job sharing with young people?
Well, how to leverage different types of credibility. Credit isn't just the credit score for you to get the house or the car or whatever material things you want, but how to leverage your credibility as far as what you bring to the table. How do you leverage that? How do you fight against microaggressions in the workplace is something that I didn't really know until I started working. I thought that education equaled the playing field for me with my colleagues, and it didn't. It was other things that I didn't really understand. I had to present in front of an audience to be taken seriously.
Something else you and I have discussed, and that is the generational technological nuances. Hate to drag you through this again,
Yes.
but I'm from the LP vinyl 8-track generation. You explained to me. I am not of the streaming generation, but you also explained to me that your generation is not the streaming generation either. You are the end of the cassettes and the CDs, and there was one other thing.
In the beginning of MP3 players.
MP3.
Yes.
What's that all about? Help me to understand. Is it dividing us?
So it's not really dividing us, but I think that when we couple the term young, when people just say young people, we kind of are all in the same group of young. Whereas there's a difference between millennials and Gen Z. It's very hard to know the difference, but we know the difference between us. And so if you can think about when technology was introduced at different points in time, also correlates with different generations. So older generations were brought up on vinyl, they were brought up on records, and then it moved to cassettes, and then it moved to CDs, and then it moved to MP3 players. And Gen Z never had a CD player before. They only grew up with streaming, and they only grew up with Google. And so how they interact with technology is a lot different. How my generation interacts with technology, we were learning it as it was coming up, but we weren't born into this whole digital space. You know, we still know what encyclopedias are, which if you talk to someone that's 20, they think is Wikipedia, is an encyclopedia. So it's just different terminology that we use. So when you just couple people underneath the whole slogan of young, you really are missing out a big portion of what young actually means, because we function a lot differently.
Do you think, for instance, banking is different for the Gen Z than it is for baby boomers?
Of course, because I
I know
think
that's a rather silly question.
Gen Z has access to information, and they've had access to also lessons learned from prior generations that we don't have access to. So they understand how money works a lot differently. They also think about education differently. They think about valuation on different things a lot differently than even I do. And so they are a lot more savvy around how they get the things that they need, but they also don't have historical context to understand what is missing. So that's why it has to be a conversation between all the generations, because as we become more advanced, we also lose information. because it's so accessible, we don't know how to determine what information is valuable and necessary and what information we need to do fact checking for. So you'll get a whole lot of fact checking happening and people just trying to dispel certain things, but then you lose the nuances of what's happening. And so it is like a blessing and a curse almost, because certain things go viral and you're like, that's so dumb, why did that thing actually go viral, this thing should have went viral. But then the undertones of what's actually happening and why it's important is often missing because they don't have the information or the maturity to understand what's happening in front of them.
Okay. Can we see your award? Your Black Wall Street Award? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, now we have to ask you to put in a plug for your company.
So I own the DM firm. It's, like I said in the beginning, it's a business development firm where I work with micro entrepreneurs and solopreneurs in order to scale their businesses in a meaningful way.
Good deal. How can people follow you, get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, www.thedmfirmnyc.com. Follow me on Instagram at The DM Firm, or send me an email to info@thedmfirmnyc.com.
Good deal. Thank you for your time.
No problem.